bit about the deer. You were talking, you left off, you had to get some of the gas out of the deer's belly. Where did that deer project show up?
Well, after the mold was made, I pulled the big piece of silicone off the deer and then laid fiberglass into it and basically made an exact replica of that dead deer. And a lot of what I do is I try to make things that interpret the environment without actually having to put a sign or put a video demonstration to teach people what's going on. So that deer eventually ended up at the San Diego Zoo in their Komodo dragon exhibit. So now you have this artificial deer, fiberglass deer, that I cut a big hole in the belly, and the keepers every day come out and they slide food bowls into the belly of this deer. They will let the dragons out, and then the dragons come out and they stick their head inside of what looks like a deer carcass and pull out big chunks of meat. So it looks like the Komodo dragons are eating a deer. Now what that is telling everyone is Komodo dragons eat deer, because deer do live on the island of Komodo. What they weren't anticipating when they put the deer feeder in was that it was going to freak everybody out, because the deer exhibit wasn't that far away, and all the kids were thinking that a deer had jumped into the exhibit and the Komodo dragons were ripping it apart in front of their face. So they ended up having to put a sign in the exhibit that says, "This is an artificial deer. It's supposed to be here. This is interpreting this exhibit." So yeah, that is the ultimate pat on the back for a guy who does what I do, making the little kids cry. Yeah. That's what it's all about.
So, are you born and raised in New Jersey?
I am. I grew up in a town called Bayhead, which was practically completely destroyed by Hurricane Sandy a couple of months ago. And after I graduated from Monmouth University, I moved out to Washington State. So I lived in Seattle and Bellingham, Washington, where I went to graduate school and lived there for about 10 years or so. And then came back to New Jersey for a project where I met my wife, and we resettled back close to Bayhead again. She likes New Jersey.
I do too.
Yep.
Mike and Andrew, I'm gonna ask Rex one more question. So if there's anything I missed, you can start thinking about that now.
Right.
Yeah. Tell me about the exhibit, the alligator exhibit that you're working on now, or the one that you've recently been asked to do at the aquarium.
The Adventure Aquarium, which is formerly the New Jersey State Aquarium, asked me to come in and make their alligator exhibit look a little bit more realistic. I would say that a lot of zoos and aquariums are now sort of going through this transition. The old days of just keeping an animal in a box and the animal for animal's sake is over. They're trying to immerse the public in what that environment would look like. And even out in the public area, you're almost in the exhibit a lot of times. We'll build mangrove trees and that sort of thing, and you have to duck your head underneath the mango tree to sort of peek into the exhibit to give you the feeling as though you're really in that environment. So the Adventure Aquarium has asked me to come in because they have one of the largest American alligators anywhere on exhibit in this basically big blue box, and we're going to go in and make it look like mud and erupting sandstone and just a little bit more of an appropriate environment for an American alligator to live in. They have a kind of a beach theme mural on the back, which was poorly painted 15 years ago. We're going to take that mural out. We're going to replace it with a more appropriate themed mural. So Mark, who you saw in the video before, is my muralist. He'll come in and paint it to look like the jungles of Florida, and then we'll resurface the pool to make it look like mud and sandstone. Just to give people more of the idea of where an alligator would naturally live, but also the alligator is going to be more happy because it's living in a more appropriate environment.
And if an alligator's happy, everyone's happy.
That's exactly right. Man, they are mean too.
You guys have anything else?
Yeah, I just wanted to get a line that basically says, and you could say it however you want, like, I can count on my hand how many people in this world do what I do,
Right.
and I'm the very best at it. Or something along those lines, just to show that this is a rare gig. I
Right.
do it for a living, and I'm the top guy that they're after.
Okay.
Yeah, you gotta blow your horn here.
Blow your horn a little
Yeah.
bit.
This is going to be the toughest part of the day, right here. I got to be honest with you.
You gotta sell it.
I know.
So, what's the question I should ask, Mike?
You know how, and you've touched upon this, but like a direct line, like how many people in the world do what you do, and what sets you aside from everybody else?
I got
How
a good
many
answer.
people in the world do what you do, and what makes you badass?
I don't know exactly how many people do what I do. There aren't that many. You could, probably count them on all your fingers, toes, but I don't know anyone who puts as much passion into it as I do, who is willing to go to the extremes to make sure that everything looks as close to reality as I can possibly make it. I think I do that better than anybody else.
Great. Andrew?
Yeah, I'd like to get, if you look at 10 and 11, Chris, on that sheet of yours that's on the second page, if you can just give me that line, listing a bunch of materials that you work with.
Okay.
And then almost just what you just said, whatever, concrete, fiberglass, plastic, rubber, styrofoam.
I gotcha.
Whatever allows me to get as close to reality as possible is the perfect material to work with.
I gotcha.
I'll set you up. What are some of the favorite materials you like to work with?
Well, I would say that my favorite material to work with is cement. And from a businessman's perspective, it's the cheapest one. But it's also the one that I feel not only looks the best originally when you first built it, but it also looks the best moving forward into the future because it's actually rock. So if you build a rock out of cement, it weathers and it stains and it looks very similar to what a rock would look like if it were there for a similar amount of time. Now, with that said, very often I have to use other materials like epoxies or fiberglasses, or sometimes I carve things out of foam and then hard coat it with other materials to make sure that it's a little bit more resilient over the long term. But cement, I would say, is probably my favorite material to work with. It's amazing what you can do with cement. It really is. The whole idea is to make it last as long as you can possibly make it last and have it look good for that entire time.
Mike, did you have
I was
something?
going to say flaunt your clients. So I've worked with the top zoological exhibits in the world
Okay.
and rat them off. And it could be, and you can mention the networks too. But I've done jobs for X, Y, and Z. I've worked with the very,
Yeah, that's
Okay.
That's a good, and then try to like tick it off rather than describe. They asked me to do this. They asked me to just say, my clients. Somebody says to me, "Who's your clients?" Well, Discovery, History Channel, A&E, Lifetime, Smithsonian, blah 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 blah.
Right.
So tell me, who are your clients?
I gotcha. Well, I mean, I've worked at some of the biggest zoos and aquariums in the country. I've worked at San Diego Zoo, National Aquarium, Detroit Zoo, San Antonio Zoo. I've worked at the Oregon Coast Aquarium. You name it. And I imagine that ultimately I will work at all of them at one point or another.
Andrew?
Yeah, when you, I showed a little bit of that jellyfish exhibit in there. Can you talk about the collaboration that you were doing with that guy?
Sure.
Mention him by name.
Okay.
And then mention the guys you worked with pouring the concrete for the horseshoe crab.
Okay.
Just proving that you collaborate with people, mention them by name, and I
gotcha.
use these guys for this thing.
Okay.
Okay, so jellyfish.
We were hired a few months ago to try to make artificial jellyfish that would actually be able to be put into water and move through the water like a real jellyfish. So we have to use water flow instead of the jellyfish moving because you can't get the jellyfish to move if it's made of plastic. So I went to one of my go-to guys, which is Mark Giampietro. He does my murals. He does a lot of the fine sculpting work for the jobs that I get. And we're just reviewing how jellyfish move through the water, some of the finer details, and then Mark went and sculpted the jellyfish out of clay, and then we made molds, and then we casted them in a clearer material to make them look more realistic. I also work with a guy from Rutgers University who is sort of, we refer to him as the permanent intern, and he's a specialist in remote operated vehicles, ROVs, underwater. They send him all over the world to go service these submarines that they send out on these expeditions. So anytime that I need something that moves through the water, that has a camera on it, that needs to do a particular job underwater, I generally have him involved on one level or another. I know guys who come in when I need large amounts of earth moved. I work with almost a co-op of guys who all have our own companies, but we all come together on the jobs and we pick whoever has a particular specialty that you need on that job, then you have a nice pool to draw from. So we have about a group of 6 or 7 guys have their own specialties, whether it's filtration, big earth moving, fine sculpting and murals, other fabrications, and it's very convenient. That way you don't have to have a bunch of employees.
Before I jump back to you guys, I have a 2 o'clock call with Animal Planet that Rachel just popped in on. So how many more questions?
I just
do you
have 2 quick
I have
ones.
just a couple lines. So
Okay,
that's it.
so I'm gonna let you guys ask them because I need to read the
Sure.
document before their call. But Rex, is there anything you want to say to the TV executive here about why we should do a show with you?
That TV executive right
That
there?
TV executive is watching you right there, and they're saying, why should I do a show with this guy?
Because everyone I know who knows me is more interested in my life than they are their own lives, basically. I do a lot cooler stuff than they do, and it would just make for very engaging television.
Excellent, excellent. If you could excuse me, I'm going to hand this over to Mike. Nice meeting you. Good to meet you. Okay.
All right, I've got
Thank
one
you, sir.
more.
Thanks, man. Good to see you.
We'll get back to you because we're going to start editing pretty soon, right?
Immediately.
Yeah, we'll start editing immediately, and we won't go too far without sending you a cut and getting some feedback.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, and I can come in and
Yeah,
that'd
be helpful.
I got no problem with that at all.
All right, thanks a lot.
Okay.
This is going to be good.
See you,
I
Ben.
basically just got one line. It's for a laugh. You mentioned Gordon Ramsay earlier. Your nephew called you Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah.
I want you to say something like, yeah, my nephew calls me Gordon Ramsay, but the difference is what I make isn't turning to shit the next day. And get like I want my products to last a long time. And so if you can get something like that, just like mention Gordon Ramsay, we get a dig in.
I don't want to get Gordon Ramsay mad at me, man. I'm afraid of him.
The networks won't
actually
spread
really
the
nice.
rumor. Unless you get on TV, then they might spread the rumor.
I'm nice too.
He's like one of the nicest guys I've ever met.
But, okay. Are you going to emote a little this time?
I'll give you more of just staring at you.
Vinny would laugh, he'd cry.
Not that nice.
I know. Okay. Could you put it in the form of a question?
Sure. Actually, Andrew.
What does your nephew call you?
Well, I might seem like a kind of a mellow guy on the outside and stuff, but my nephew actually refers to me when we're at work as Gordon Ramsay because I have a tendency to kind of lose it a little when things aren't necessarily going my way. But, the difference between Gordon Ramsay and me is that, my stuff lasts a long time and Gordon Ramsay's stuff just turns to shit in a few hours. How's that?
Yeah, I like
good.
it.
There
I
you
like
go.
that.
Just a quick line saying, "My name's Rex. I am a skilled diver, marine, but right off all the things. But more importantly, I build the most crazy facades and exhibits for the most blah 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 around the country. It's just a one-line summation of you like, I do X, Y, and Z, but most importantly,
Okay.
and that's the gist of the introduction of the show.
Can I put in gentle and considerate lover? No, that might get me too much of a fan base.
The network's responding real quick after that.
Yeah. All right. My name is Chris Wojcik. I'm a marine biologist, an artist, a scuba instructor. No, let's say scuba instructor. Professional
Chris
diver.
Rex, because we may refer to you as Rex in the promo.
Oh, you really?
Yeah.
Okay.
You look at me.
Okay. My name is Chris Wojcik. They call me Rex. See, nobody ever calls me Rex Wojcik. That's just, it's like my go-go dancer name. They don't really want to put my last name on there. What's that?
We call you wrecked half the time.
I have a problem with the canned lines.
Yeah, it's tough.
You know?
Try to make it as natural as possible.
Yeah.
But like,
Well, I know that, Andrew. Thanks. Don't put any more pressure on me or anything. Yeah, just do it right and do it quickly. My name is Chris Rex. That doesn't sound right.
Just say Rex.
Yep.
Just say Rex. My name is Rex.
My name is Rex. I'm a Marine. Oh, sorry. Thanks.
Look at me now.
Yeah, I was looking at the TV executive again. My name is Rex. I'm a marine biologist, an artist, a professional diver, and I build the craziest, hopefully the most realistic exhibits on the planet.
That's perfect. That's all I need.
Is that all right?
And then one more. So it's a one-line summation on the diversification of your projects.
Okay.
You know, they can be big, they can be small.
Right.
I've built some of the biggest exhibits in the world to some of the smallest with the most detail.
Right.
And I'm ready and willing to do whatever my client tells me.
Right. I think that's in there already.
Yeah.
I think so. Oh, I don't know about a one line. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just a matter of it. Say we're going back to footage, just to the exec's like, well, what kind of projects are you going on? That one line, we're gonna pop, 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 pop. We'll see all those photos, we'll see all those statistics, we'll see the horseshoe crab, we'll see this, and it'll just be a one line summation of everything.
How do you want me to start it?
So what kind of range do you have in your projects? What kind of different stuff are we going to see on this show?
I gotcha. I'm hired to build anything from exhibits the size of buildings all the way down to the exhibits the size of shoe boxes. They asked me to work in fiberglass, concrete, epoxy. I work in still video, or still images, video. I'll do something like that.
But that's perfect. That's
okay.
Exactly.
I'm hired to build exhibits anywhere from the size of a building all the way down to the size of a shoebox. I use all different types of materials, whether it's cement, fiberglass, epoxy. I work with still images. I work with video. I work with artificial trees, artificial rocks, waterfalls. I'll pretty much do anything as long as it has something to do with natural history.
Perfect. That's all I need.
Good.
That's
That was
awesome.
beautiful.
I think something aligned with
Oh, Jesus, Chris.
We were talking about you.
The camera guys chiming in now? Jesus.
The students. I think it's really cool that you teach students, and I know if I was one of your students and somebody as far as being like a scientist and you know so much, but then you're still creative. I think that's really cool. And like, if it's like I'm a creative person, so I feed off that. So I wonder, it's like I get to be creative and teach these kids and see these kids grow or whatever, but all at the same time I'm still doing what I love and like always interacting with my material and learning from these kids and looking how like they might point something out.
Right, I
think
gotcha.
it's something really cool.
Yeah. Okay.
As far as just an episode would be you teaching some kid, and some kid might be like, I want to start doing film underwater. And,
Right. I gotcha.
Do you ever teach these kids that you mold? Do they know?
Yeah,
that
like
you
the
do
permanent intern.
that? Yeah.
One of my favorite things about what I do is teaching. Obviously, I teach on a big scale, which is I teach the public, but then I also teach college and I teach scuba diving. So I just love to pass on the knowledge that I have and that I've accumulated over years of doing what I do. I love the combination of creativity, physical work, and being able to pass on that information to as many people as will listen.
And with that, you'll know. It's like, and with that, I'm never done working.
Right, I gotcha.
Always working.
Yeah. And in that, basically, you have a job that you don't ever want to retire from or ever stop doing. And I'm very lucky in that regard.
Cool.
I'd like to hear
That's
you
great.
just give, you had that one line before where your exhibits or your calling card,
Mhm.
your website.
Yeah.
I mean, a one line like that,
I love
something
that
like,
too.
the most awesome job, my exhibits are my calling card. I don't need a website, something along those lines.
Okay. I just have to formulate that.
So how important is it that your exhibits look phenomenal?
Well, it's the most important thing to my job. I mean, my exhibits are my calling card. I don't even have a website for people to go to, so the only place for people to see my work is to actually go and experience it for themselves.
Great. All right, cool.
And I promise this is the last thing, just because Vinny never went back to it, is the punchline when you said, when the lights go off, most of the time they're just looking for shark teeth, excuse me. So if you could just give that line real quick.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Yeah. Like, it's like,
Right.
most of the time if I freak out, but I gotta be concerned with him,
Right.
shark tooth fishing, something.
So most of the time when the safety divers are in the water following me around, and if the lights were to go off and I really needed them, chances are they'd probably be back there just looking for shark teeth.
Great. Cool. That was like the one line I wanted to get, and